Bienvenidos. I'm Joe Torres. Welcome to another edition of Tiempo. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. We come back to you once again from our temporary home during the coronavirus outbreak. No in-studio guests, only online interviews for everyone's safety. The Latino community in the New York metropolitan area, as well as across the country, has been disproportionately impacted by the coronavirus. You've seen the reports. Preliminary data from the city's health department shows blacks and Latinos died from the virus at rates above their share of the city's population, and many of those deaths happened in nursing homes. Health experts say higher levels of pre-existing health conditions mean a greater risk of a viral infection for people in many minority neighborhoods. And another contributing factor, lack of access to quality health care. AARP New York has teamed up with the Hispanic Federation to address the disparities, and Bronx State Senator Gustavo Rivera is lending a helping hand as well. We'll talk to them a little bit later in the show. Right now, though, protecting Latino employees during the pandemic, a New York City law firm that represents many Latinos has been addressing everything from safety issues while on the job as an essential employee to unemployment benefits for those who are out of work because of the shutdown. Just a few minutes ago, we chatted with immigration attorney Gianfranco Cuadra. Buenos días, señor. Thanks for joining us, Gianfranco. I assume you and your colleagues there in the office have been exceedingly busy during these difficult times, yes?
Yes, absolutely. You're right, Joe.
What are some of the things that you've been dealing with? I mean, let's start off with the biggest. What has been the biggest challenge that this pandemic has presented to many of your clients, many of your Latino clients in particular?
Well, in particular, it's been that many people are being terminated as a result of COVID-19 closings. But we're also seeing a lot of situations where people are let go and they're not told what their rights are and their own wages upon being let go. And there are many avenues of recovery for them available, and that's what we talk to them about once they come and talk to us.
Alrighty. I mean, wage theft has long been, shall we say, a problem for many Latinos who are working in restaurants and other locations where they have not been paid what they should have been paid. So we'll get to that in a second. But specifically in regards to the pandemic, I'm trying to come up with an example. Somebody who's let go and the employer does not want them to come back for whatever reason. What options do those clients have in terms of going back to work?
Well, for that, it really depends on why the employee was let go. If the employee was let go because of an illness or an underlying condition, such as a person having cancer or having diabetes, somebody who's at risk for getting COVID-19 and it developing into a much more serious condition, then that can be an underlying disability discrimination claim. And for that, the employee can go to the EOC, or in my firm, we represent them, we can just go straight to federal court or state court and sue. Now, if the employee is let go for other reasons, such as economic reasons, or it's a non-essential business that was closed down, unfortunately, New York State, like many other states around the country, almost all of them, is an employment at will state. So that means that an employee can always be let go for any reason or no reason at all.
I assume this works both ways also. You might have employers who really want their employees to come back, but the employee, for one reason or another, the kids are out of school, he's got to take care of them, does not want to go back or can't go back. How do you accommodate that situation? It seems like you have two extremes here.
Correct. So employment at will, as you point out, is a two-sided sword, really. So the employee cannot be forced to go back to work because that would be slavery, and that's not allowed. But the employee, depending on the situation, like you just pointed out, it might be that the employee can't go back to work because the employee has to stay home to take care of a kid whose daycare or school was closed. If that's the situation, under the new federal law, actually, employees have the right to stay home for up to 12 weeks and be paid up to $12,000 for staying home. And the employer cannot retaliate or fire an employee for exercising those rights.
Are you having some stories from employers who might also be Latino, by the way, who are saying, I understand the situation, but I'm in the same boat as the employee. I can't generate cash. I can't generate income if we're not open. So therefore, I cannot pay you. How do you accommodate the needs of both sides when it seems both of them have an equal claim?
So when that situation comes up, we also represent management Well, there were other options available to the employer. For example, there are loan programs such as PPP available, and there are other programs available through New York City in order to get money to pay the employees. And most of these programs, the employer can actually write off when the employer does taxes next year, as long as the funds that were obtained are used to pay employees.
Have you had some of your employees or clients, I should say, apply for stimulus checks and have those checks arrived? And are they lending a helping hand the way they were designed to do?
The problem that we're seeing with that is a very complicated area of the law that involves a combination between the WARN Act and PPP. So basically, the bottom line of it is PPP funds have to be used in order to pay the employee.
PPP, for purposes of explanation, Personal Protection Program, correct?
Right. So Paycheck Protection Program funds are supposed to be used to pay employees. But in many cases, the employer, due to economic reasons or because of the executive order, New York on pause, have had to let go of their employees. Now, if you let go of the employees, how are you supposed to pay the employees? So then they have to bring them back, and then they might have to issue new warnings, depending on the size of the employer, to say that we are going to have to let you go after a certain amount of time. So
super complex, and it explains one of the reasons why you and your colleagues are so busy. Sit tight. We're going to take a break, and we come back. Let's talk a little bit about that wage theft and what you've encountered as a result of this pandemic. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Tiempo. A New York City law firm that represents Latinos has been exceedingly busy during this pandemic, addressing everything from employee safety issues to unemployment benefits. Just a few minutes ago, we chatted with immigration attorney Gianfranco Cuadra. Gianfranco, thanks for hanging with us this morning here on Tiempo. I wanted to ask you a little bit about wage theft. That we know has been a long-standing problem. What have you encountered? What have you found from employees who have been either furloughed or terminated or laid off? And then as you do a little bit of research, find that perhaps they're owed some money that might date back, what, months, years?
Years, in fact. Under the New York labor law, the statute of limitations is 6 years. So anything that might have happened within the last 6 years is game for an employee to make a lawsuit for unpaid wage.
What have you found so far?
So what we have found is somebody who's let go comes to us as somebody who's non-exempt, meaning somebody who's supposed to be getting paid overtime wages, and the person might be paid a certain amount per shift work, or a certain amount per week worked, or a certain amount per day worked. And that is a violation of the law, of the federal and state law, if the person's normally working over 40 hours per week. Because what you do, unless we're talking about the restaurant industry, what you do is you take the total compensation received and you divide it by the number of hours worked, and then whatever that number is divided by 2, and that's owed per hour over 40 worked. And then multiply it by 2, and then add interest and do that calculation for 6 years. So when we're talking about this, it could be that the employee is owed hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Have you found that with some of your clients already?
Yes, we have. So it could be somebody as simple as something as simple as a pizza maker working in New York City, who's being paid, say, $800 per week flat, and the person's working 60 hours per week.
What's the reality that those individuals, Gianfranco, will actually get that money back?
Well, it really depends on several factors. First of all, we first do research on the employer to determine whether the employer has the assets to pay that. Obviously, because if they can't pay it, you can't get water out of a rock. So if they can't pay it, then we just tell them, we'll try to get you what we can, and that's that. It's better to get the employee something than nothing, especially during these hard times.
Are you scratching your head at the paradox here that the pandemic revealed the wage theft? Had there been no pandemic, perhaps the employer or your client may never have known that they were actually owed this money.
Yes, in several instances, that's actually what happens. And even before the pandemic, that's what happens. People are let go. They think that they have a claim because they were let go, but unknown to them, because they didn't know their rights, it turns out that they had this massive wage claim underlying it.
Mm-hmm. Last question. We've only got probably about a minute left. Undocumented workers, obviously unemployment benefits are not an option for undocumented workers. So what financial options, if any, do they have?
Well, again, Joe, that goes back to the reason why they were terminated. If they were terminated say for a discriminatory reason, not just because of COVID-19. Like, let's say all of the Latino workers were let go, but everybody else was kept. That would be discrimination. Then they have a discrimination claim. If they were let go because they brought up a wage claim in the retaliation, the employer fired them. Now they have additional claims against the employer. If they got injured on the job, unknown to many people, undocumented workers have the right to compensation, worker compensation. So if they exercise that right and then they got fired because of it, again, they have another claim. Unfortunately, as you point out, they don't have rights to unemployment insurance, but they do have other rights that might supplant it or at least help them during this time.
Gianfranco Cuadra, thank you so much for the education, and thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Keep up the good fight.
Thank you very much, Joe.